A significant proportion of Nazi Germany's political elite and their most advanced alien technology and fully operational saucer ships had escaped from Allied occupational forces. What remained of Nazi Germany's advanced weapon programs was disturbing in terms of the overall technological advances achieved by the Nazis in many fields of weapons production. The fact that the Nazis had removed most of their advanced secrets, technology, and personnel during the run-up to the final defeat of Germany would have been a huge shock to Allied leaders once it became clear what had occurred. Rather than the final months of the Second World War being a last desperate gamble by a megalomaniac Nazi leadership that could not accept inevitable defeat, it was in fact a holding action for a methodically well-planned extraction of the Nazis' most valuable resources and personnel to well-prepared remote locations in the Antarctic and South America. This allowed the Nazis to continue their unique social system and plan to eventually play an important, if not dominant, role in global affairs. The Nazis had sufficient time and resources to prepare for such an exodus given their extensive business links, front companies, and connections with South American governments and companies. The well-equipped Nazi expeditions to the Antarctic in the pre-war period allowed the Nazis to familiarize themselves with the Antarctic terrain and lay the foundations for any post-war role to be played by these territories. During the war itself, extensive submarine activity in the region of Antarctica suggested that the Nazis could have been building bases. After Germany's unconditional surrender on May 8, 1945, Nazi submarine activity in the Antarctic region continued as evidenced by a report from the French press agency on September 25, 1946. The report stated that continuous rumors about German U-boat activity between the southernmost tip of Latin America and the continent of Antarctica are based on true happenings. What compounded this realization of a Nazi elite exodus to Antarctica was evidence that alien races were indeed visiting the Earth. The alien presence would now be a factor in the Allies pursuing and destroying the remnants of Nazi Germany that had relocated to Antarctica and South America, and who were now using their fully operational saucer ships to move around the planet and possibly even fly into deep space. Many of the UFOs witnessed in the most immediate post-war era were fully operational Nazi spacecraft. A little-known effort to once and for all end the Nazi threat occurred with a naval military expedition led by Admiral Richard Byrd to the Antarctic in 1946 and 47. Byrd's military expedition was named Operation High Jump. The Antarctic summer of 1946 and 47 was the first opportunity to mount such a large military expedition to the frigid regions of Antarctica. Coming so soon after the end of the Second World War, it was a puzzle why such a large armada would travel to Antarctica at a time of increasing Cold War tensions and decommissioning of naval personnel, unless the expedition was sent to militarily deal with some of the unresolved issues from the war itself, remnants of the Nazi elite hidden in an underground base or bases. The Byrd mission was scheduled to last up to 6 months, but it ended in a mere 8 weeks because it had, according to Chilean press reports, run into trouble and that there had been many fatalities. If the true goal of the mission was to locate and eradicate any Nazi bases, the press reports and early end to the mission indicated dismal failure and a rude awakening for the U.S. Navy. A March 5, 1947 Chilean press interview of Admiral Byrd after the premature end of Operation High Jump suggested that there had indeed been a military failure and that there was a new threat located at the South Pole. Admiral Byrd declared that it was imperative for the United States to initiate immediate defense measures against hostile regions. The Admiral further stated that he didn't want to frighten anyone, but it was a bitter reality that in case of a new war, the continental United States would be attacked by flying objects which could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. It was clear that the best the U.S. Navy could muster was no match for the small but well-armed Nazi elite that survived the war in their remote Antarctic location. Indeed, the possibility that the Nazis were receiving alien assistance in fending off the United States attack could not be discounted. The Nazi efforts through occult groups to communicate with an advanced civilization may have resulted in the elite Nazis being assisted in relocating to the hidden Antarctic base and possibly receiving significant alien support from any attack by the United States and its allies. The victorious allies that formed the United Nations and whose principal members became the permanent members of the UN Security Council would cooperate in ensuring non-disclosure of the alien presence to their respective general publics and other national governments. This suggested that the United Nations Security Council provided an important forum for the permanent members to coordinate their respective national policies on aliens and ensuring non-disclosure of the alien presence and/or discovery of alien technology. The second major policy adopted for globally managing alien affairs was that the alien connection with Nazi Germany and the survival of the Nazi elite in remote locations in Antarctica and South America would not be disclosed to the general public and most elected public officials by those national governments aware of the Nazi exodus. This was to ensure that there would be no reemergence of the Nazi ideology as the basis of new national governments anywhere in the world, and of Nazi elites capturing a major state for promoting their Nazi belief systems. This posed considerable difficulties in South America, where many governments had strong pro-Nazi sentiments and had provided material support and safe havens for the Axis powers. Countries such as Antarctica, Paraguay, Chile, and Brazil were carefully watched due to strong pro-Nazi sympathies among political elites and the potential for these states to be vehicles for the spread of Nazism, fascism in the South American continent. Indeed, much of the Cold War struggle that occurred throughout South America was an effort to contain the spread of Nazism, fascism, and the need to rein in the influence of Nazi enclaves that influenced governments on this continent. The fear was that South America could one day become a vehicle for a renewed effort by the remaining Nazi elites for regional, if not global, domination. The Cold War struggle in South America was a covert means for the United States and the Soviet Union to minimize the threat posed by the escaped Nazi elite by exhausting South American states in a series of political and economic crises. These perennial crises would ensure that no South American state could ever achieve the kind of economic potential that would enable it to develop the industrial capacity and the technological base that would provide the Nazi elite with a vehicle for achieving a leadership role in regional and/or world affairs. The third major policy adopted for globally managing alien affairs was that all alien-inspired technology left by Nazi Germany was divided between the victorious powers of the United States, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union in terms of who had possession of this technology or scientists in their respective zones of control in occupied Germany and former occupied territories. Each Allied state incorporated this technology into their respective military efforts aimed at weapons development and intelligence acquisitions.